Today we're going to talk about transitions, about how you're going to link different ideas together, finding similarities between the things you're talking about and putting those in an order that makes sense to the reader. Why do you need to worry about transitions? In the past, maybe colleagues have said this was jumpy or choppy. If you write the way you think, it may be that your brain jumps from ideas to ideas. In most cases, I asked you to find specific passages from the text that may not relate to the idea that came before or after that, after the quotation sandwich. And so transitions are you trying to figure out how you're going to link the different parts of the paper. All right, again, organization consists of the order in which you present the parts of your argument, and then what is the relationship between those parts. So let me share with you the first part of a paper on Record of a Spaceborne Few that I wrote. When I walk out of the Fairmont State Cafeteria, I'm always saddened to see students carrying takeout boxes of food. But my concern is not that students are missing out on socializing with friends over a meal. For one thing, I see many students around campus eating out of their takeout boxes next to their friends who also have takeout boxes. Clearly, social interaction is alive and well on our campus. What bothers me is that students have chosen to use those disposable boxes instead of the reusable meal boxes promoted by the Fairmont State Creative Sustainability Council. My reusable box only cost $5, but I have used it probably 30 times over the past year, and after reading Record of a Spaceborne Few, I plan to continue using it. In Becky Chambers' novel, members of the Exodus Fleet carry everything they need with them, and they recycle and reuse everything they have because they know that their resources are limited. So what I'm doing here, I am showing you a multi-part thesis. This isn't perhaps the traditional thesis statement that your high school instructors were looking for. I've kind of spread it out in 3 parts. Still a good thesis, I think. So in yellow, the part I have in yellow is my plan of development, how I'm going to expand the essay. And it's a good idea to give readers a heads up about what you're going to say and the order you're going to say it in. That helps you to organize your presentation. Their recycling included everything from hand-me-down clothing to recovering and repurposing parts of the destroyed ship Oxomoco, to composting table scraps and wastewater, reusing cloth wrappers for food items, and most important of all, the composting of human bodies to fertilize the food of those to come. While we on Earth haven't completely accepted the idea that our resources are limited, I think we would do well to learn this lesson from the Exodus Fleet. And so my standard thesis statement is actually in green. While we on Earth haven't completely accepted the idea that our resources are limited, we would do well to learn this lesson. Okay, so you get the idea from the green passage that that is my thesis statement. In yellow are the details I'm going to talk about, and I actually rearranged this to go from the beginning of the book, where Kip talks about his hand-me-down clothing, to recovery and repurposing the Oxomoco, to then talking about composting table scraps, Kip doing the dishes, and wastewater sanitation duty, reusing cloth wrappers, and then I left composting human bodies last because it's really one of the most important aspects here, and we don't really see it in action until Sawyer is buried. Here's the outline that I wrote that goes with that. And again, so under each one I have a couple of examples from the text, and I have put this outline in Blackboard Week 7 if you want to take a look at it. Again, what I'm doing is I'm giving you an outline of how you might organize your paper. You know, this is one way to do it, to outline the things you want to mention, and then go back and write the paper in this order. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is transitions within paragraphs. Very important. So this gives cohesion to your writing. The last few words of one sentence should set up the information that appears in the first few words of the next. So what does that look like? Here's an example. Again, there are 3 ways to create cohesion in paragraphs. Number 1, repeat a key term or phrase. Again, if repetition of the same word is too much and seems tedious, then use a synonym, a word that means the same thing. Here's an example with the synonyms highlighted in blue. The largest ocean liner of its time set sail for New York in April 1912. Of course, it's the Titanic. This now famous ship, so ocean liner, ship, the Titanic, never finished its voyage. It hit an enormous iceberg halfway through the trip and caused 2,000 some passengers to head for the lifeboats. Then, within hours, the mammoth vessel plunged beneath the icy Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so ocean liner, ship, vessel. The repetition of those words gives that paragraph some cohesion. A second way to create cohesion in your paragraphs is to use subordination and coordination. We've been talking about that a lot in the accelerated group. Other people may need to catch up. But again, using subordinating conjunctions like although or because are a way to provide logical connections. So using subordination and coordination to combine sentences is a good thing to do in your paragraphs. Although I like autumn, it is a sad time of year. Because I find these things unpleasant, I can't help thinking ahead to winter's arrival. Okay, third way to create cohesion. Use transitional words and phrases according to the meaning you're trying to convey. So here are some examples. There were a lot of problems discussed at the meeting. Finally, after a few hours, we were able to prioritize the problems. I feel that our last student council meeting did not go well. In other words, it was a fine mess. I have a few things to take care of, such as paying bills, cleaning the house, going to the post office. Jeff told us an undoubtedly true story that was very scary. Okay, so you've got some transition words there that connect the 2 ideas. So here's an example of how all of those work. Humans can do much more than trot, carry, and pull, but the skills required in most offices hardly elicit our full range of intelligence. Most jobs are still boring, repetitive, and easily learned. The most common occupations in the U.S. are retail salesperson, cashier, food and beverage server, and office clerk. Together, these 4 jobs employ 15 million people, nearly 10% of the labor force, or more workers than there are in Texas and Massachusetts combined. Each is highly susceptible to automation, according to the Oxford study. All right. What the second paragraph here does is use it condenses the earlier work, and you can see how the synonyms throughout this join it together. Humans have more skills than horses. Trot, carry, and pull. Humans' full range of skills aren't always utilized by many office jobs. Many jobs don't push us to our full potential. Here are the most common jobs. I left that out. These jobs employ many people. These jobs could be eliminated through automation. Again, I think you could probably combine sentences 5 and 6, but you get the idea. Some repetition, especially if you use synonyms, is actually helpful in keeping your paragraphs organized and helping your readers understand what you're saying. How about transitions between paragraphs, explaining how you got from here to there? All right, let's talk about El País, a Latin American country that has a new democratic government after having been a dictatorship. So my sentence would be, El País is not as democratic as the conventional view would have us believe. That's the meaning I want to convey. So in paragraph A, I'm going to explain all the reasons that it seems to be democratic, and then in paragraph B, I'm going to show all the reasons that it really isn't democratic, even though you think it should be. So, paragraph A supports the view El País's new government is very democratic. We transition to showing how it isn't, and our transition might read, despite the previous arguments, there are many reasons to think that El País's new government is not as democratic as typically believed. And so I'm going to give, in paragraph B, I'm going to give all those arguments. Paragraph B starts with the words, despite the previous arguments. That's a great reflection back on the paragraph that just happened. And that's the kind of thing you need to do in your paper. So connect the paragraph that you've just done into the paragraph you're currently writing. So here's an example. How might you write a transition between these ideas? Fearing for the loss of Danish lands, Christian IV signed the Treaty of Lubeck, effectively ending the Danish phase of the 30 Years' War. But then something else significant happened. The Swedish intervention began. Okay, so how might that have a better transition? Something like this. Fearing for the loss of more Danish lands, Christian IV signed the Treaty of Lubeck, ending the Danish phase of the 30 Years' War. Now, shortly after Danish forces withdrew, again, it doesn't say up here that Danish forces withdrew, but we know they did, because that's when you sign a treaty, your forces withdraw. So this points out to us what this part means, and that's helpful information to have. All right, so here's another example. Traveling is my life. I work every day to fund my next trip. When I was 22, I went on my first trip by myself. I went to the Netherlands, Scotland, and Ireland. After that trip, I knew I would spend the rest of my life traveling. I am so addicted to traveling that if I am not traveling, I am planning my next trip.